Good morning.
Wonderful energy we have here this morning. I'm reading a wonderful book about the power of networks right now. The author observed an explanation of man's powerful unfoldment is how we are wired. Within us is a need for community, connection, and contribution. Often driven by joy and hardship. This echoes Ernest Holmes' Our Oneness with All, the importance of mental equivalence, seeing different possibilities, our connection to race mind, influences of those who have come before us and those around us, and of course cause and effect. Our intention this morning is to look at Ernest Holmes' ideas, our roots, our experiences, and our observations. Ernest Holmes tells us that the study of science of mind is the study of first cause and spirit. We are spirit, and we are law. And the law of life reacts to our spiritual and material concepts and builds and rebuilds according to our beliefs and our faith. Let us come to each day with peace and spontaneous joy, for the Spirit is joy. Joy is how we celebrate all of the beauty around us. Joy, as you've heard, is an inside job. Our talk this morning, like most talks you hear at the center, is about what we already know and too often forget. This month's theme is joy, and our talk is titled, not surprisingly, Joy is an Inside Job. We know our perceived reality is driven by our focus. When we see our connection with all and marvel at life's many wonders, life can be joyous. When we see separation and unhappiness, life will tend to be difficult. Like when you lose a tooth the day before you speak in public. Then realize a great example, and then realize what a great example it would make in your talk. And realize I had a dental appointment Tuesday morning anyway with a great dentist, so life is supporting me. Tina, Geneva, and I were very fortunate in our study of science of mind. We started our classwork under Donald Graves, whose strength was his intellectual understanding of science of mind, and completed our prac studies under Candy Smith-Frank, whose strength was her great heart and her feeling for the science of mind philosophy. Both started their ministries with us in the Women's Club in Pioneers Park. Both moved to another facility. And Don's vision was perhaps driven a bit by ego. Holmes says use of willpower to influence others is a mistake. It presumes one is greater than the other, and therefore is of temporary usefulness. Honestly, Don's appreciation or appeal of the intellectual aspect of science of mind is very much in alignment with where I am, or where I have been. And I think it's a guy thing to be goal-directed in our society. And one of the things that I honestly admit that I have done in the past is when you have a goal, oftentimes you use your willpower to kind of manipulate your environment. And I honestly have found over the years that is not an effective long-term solution to anything. While Don got his new facility, the center ended up back at the Women's Club. On the other hand, Candy's focus was building community. and an environment that fostered personal growth. You can see the result around you today of the seed that she planted. Joyously nourished by the personal growth of the members who, over many years, who have seen the difference the center could make within our community and indeed within their own lives. And speaking of seeds, a great influence in my life was my grandmother. She immigrated from Sweden when she was 13. In 1914, at the age of 15, she married my grandfather, who had immigrated from England around the same time. By 1920, she had my mother and two uncles. Living in Hollywood, fidelity was important to my grandmother, but not necessarily important to my grandfather, resulting in a divorce in 1923. At 23, with three children, she rented out her home in Venice Beach for the summer for the income. And for many years, they went to June Lake to camp out for the summer. The beauty of the area, the wonderful people, the loving connection to family, fishing, hiking, hunting, working, and playing resulted in a memory of absolute joy which survived throughout their lives. This was communicated to their families, who independently returned their ashes to June Lake within 50 yards of each other without knowing until later the others were there. This connection to that period and each other transcended times and created a mental equivalent picture of joy that is life not only for themselves but also for the families, which brought them back together in their death. I would imagine most marriages begin in the heart, where the focus is celebrating their connection, and some end in the head, where the focus is on differences and a desire for freedom from those differences. Tina and I had starter spouses. Which taught us the difference between me and we. The difference between the joy of us and the discard of needing it my way. And here again, joy in marriage too can be seen as an inside job. Ernest Holmes says, man already has within him the key to freedom, but must come to realize his relationship to the whole, the we. This relationship is one of complete unity. Stephen Hawking says it this way: remember to look up at the stars and not down at your feet. Be curious. And however difficult life may seem, there is always something you can do and succeed at. It matters that you don't give up. For the person with the ultimate difficult life, this giant succeeded in seeing our magnificent universe clearer than any person before him. He experienced the great joy of one who has truly connected to all around him. We have within us divine gifts to be shared. Tina and I have found that our personal growth and recognition of these gifts accelerated with classwork. Ernest Holmes says there is a place in us which lies open to the infinite, which when Spirit brings its gifts by pouring itself through us, it can give to us only what we can take. Consider embracing classwork as a vehicle of personal growth and discovery, and unleash that giant within you. Recognize Spirit is always bringing gifts. Learn to embrace them. From John Price's book of living a book, Living a Life of Joy. So what is joy? Being connected to where you are without reservation and judgment. We are made for interdependence and mutual support. That said, it is now my pleasure to introduce the joy of my life.
Thank you, sweetie. So good morning.
Good morning.
My intention this morning is to share with you some ways to remember and recapture that sense of joy that you might have in your life. So when I found out that the theme was joy, I went around and looked for wonderful readings. And he's already mentioned John Randolph Price's book, Living a Life of Joy. John Price was the one who started the year-end meditation that we all celebrate on New Year's Eve. A wonderful reading that introduces my topic very well. I believe that when we live with joyful reverence, for the fun of it, our worthiness soars because we have touched the true meaning of life. Through innocence, humility, and reverence, we will begin to remember our worthiness as a creation of God, as a divine individual. We are worthy of wholeness and radiant health. We are worthy of lavish abundance. We are worthy of loving, lasting relationships. We are worthy of great success in victory and triumph over every trial and tribulation. After all, remember, each one of us is a vital piece of the cosmic puzzle. So to prepare for the talk, in the various activities I did in the weeks leading up to it, I asked people that I interacted with what joy meant to them. And it was really heartwarming to see that not many people had to stop and think about it. They were aware of perhaps joy in their life and maybe the absence of joy. And some of them are the usual suspects that we would all immediately say. Kids and babies. Kittens and puppies. I mean, how can you resist being joyful around all of that energy? Kids at Christmas, where they're just in the moment, absolutely present with abandon and excitement and anticipation, expectation, and joy at what's unfolding that morning. Some people see it as preparing food, not only for themselves, but for their family and for their friends and other people. One person really feels joyful when she serves at the soup kitchen because it expands her appreciation for other people, and she's open to receive the appreciation back from those that she's serving. How about the sight and the sound and the smell of rain? So much more appreciated in the desert when it comes. How wonderful it is to run out and appreciate it. The clouds in our sky. The sky is so clear and blue here, and the skies just roll around and create different images. How can you be lost in your stuff if you're looking up at the beauty all around you? How about when your family comes together and you can laugh at your experiences and perhaps laugh at yourself? One gentleman said he's really joyful when at the end of the month he has money left over that he can set aside for unexpected expenses. And me, the greatest joy in my life is having someone who loves me unconditionally. He can see through my warts, let's say, see through my tendency to hang on, and just touches the God within. He exudes heart too. Notice when you hug him and you look in his eyes, you can see to his soul. That's joy to me. And last Sunday, I don't know how many of you were around when Reagan was here and opening the Easter eggs that were laying around. She was picking them up. She was helping gather them, and she would open them. And what was in them was nothing that made noise, but it was an affirmation, a piece of paper. So Every time. She didn't get tired of doing this. She'd open them and she'd see the paper and she'd go, oh! Imagine if we look at our life that way. Oh, it was delightful. So you've heard us speak about difficult times we've had in our relationship, mostly around the work. And our work is really, really mental. So most of our daylight time is spent in the brain, in the head. And we have developed reminders over the years of how to move to the heart, especially when interactions get difficult. Some interactions for me, I must admit, as soon as I knew I was going to be speaking on joy, guess what? I had opportunities to look at joy in some interactions that came up. And you'll see that. When you decide to focus on something, there's ample opportunities to really take a look at it. So this center has been wonderful for us because it gives us a chance to look outside of ourselves, to be of service. The simplest things in a spiritual community are really powerful. Giving a smile to someone who comes in. It takes you outside of yourself. Helping to clean up. Helping with the children now. We have an opportunity to do that. How much joy can you get if you decide you want to help with the children? Especially if you don't have grandkids around to remind you of that all the time. And the city, this is a remarkable city with all of the nonprofit organizations that are always looking for committed volunteers, whether you're in the art world, whether you're in music, whether you're in helping kids, big brother, big sister. Wherever you want to share yourself to expand your vision of your life, it's here. Great community for that. And of course, simple but hard is if you're stuck in stuff that's not working for you, you have a choice. You can either sit in it and stew in it, or you can maybe look back a little bit, change your perspective on it, and see another way to look at it. It won't look so big and overwhelming and a huge obstacle to overcome. Surround yourself with positive people. They help keep you focused on the good. And you, as a positive person, can help other people stay focused on the good. Another thing we did, because we don't have grandkids here, they're in 2 different states. We borrowed neighborhood kids and had a game night with them once a week for about 2 years. They would come, they were 10, 2 of them were 10, and the other one was 15, and by the time she was done, she was 16. But we would come together for a couple hours on Monday, and it allowed us to escape any concerns or stuff that wasn't really happy from work, and it gave the parents a break, and it gave the kids a socialization opportunity. The deal was we said, okay, we want to play games. Pure and simple. We'll play board games, and we'll play video games. We'll alternate. And then they wanted to do, this is how open and free they were and what joy it was. They said, let's do America's Got Talent. So we would go outside in the yard, and Doug and I would set up chairs. We were the judges, and they would perform with abandon, without worrying about what we might think about them or what somebody driving by might think what's going on or what each other would think about them. So these are things that are simple, but they make your heart sing, and they bring you back to joy. Relax. How simple does that sound? But sometimes I've noticed that there's always so much stuff that needs to be done that maybe relaxing is put further down on the list. That's what I found our cats are good for. Those of you who have cats know that they like attention. And so they seem to have a sense when we need to slow down, just sit down for a while, because they become pretty cranky, pretty ornery, pretty vocal until we sit, so they can sit in our lap and make us be calm for a while. In the same vein, meditation. You can do a walking meditation. Sunday morning provides you a wonderful opportunity to come in and meditate and remember the truth of who you are. Anything that takes you out of the world and brings you back inside into your heart and to remember the truth. Barbara's meditation this morning was wonderful, and it reminded us that just because we're joyful doesn't mean there's less joy for other people. The more that we express joy and see that life can be lived fun and abundant and joyfully, what a gift that is to other people that may not be in that frame of mind at the moment. And check in with your heart. Are you really doing stuff that feeds your heart, whether it's something creative or something that takes you out of your head? For me, for a lot of years, it was sewing and crocheting. I got to use the other side of my psyche, my brain, and it filled my heart to create something. And don't forget to use your sense of wonder. We've already mentioned the sunrises and sunsets. Take time to just stand in awe and look at how beautiful the mountains are with the colors and the skies that we have here. These things don't cost money, and they're available every day to take us outside of ourselves. Once during a very difficult period in our life, Reverend Sandy gave us a very colorful ceramic rooster about 18 inches high. She brought it to us from Mexico, put it in our yard where we could look at it every day. At first we thought, you really want to see this every time you come visit us? Okay. But you know what it did? When we were pretty not aware or not in the moment, we would see that rooster and we would smile. Other people driving up would comment on it and they would smile. And then someone said, why don't you dress it up for the holidays? So we did. We put Santa hats on it. We put Valentine's cloth on it. We put something green on it for St. Patrick's Day. So the silliest little things can bring you just an incredible amount of joy. And looking around our house, we see the universe absolutely supports us in remembering joy if we just continue to look. We have a cookbook, The Joy of Cooking. Cooking can be a joy. And what about Joy dish soap? I think it was Thomas Moorhead, perhaps, that said that washing dishes is a form of meditation. I mean, think about it. You know what it looks like, you do it, and you have an endpoint, and you can see a finished job. It's great. How about the Ode to Joy? If you've ever heard that, you know that it just makes the hairs on your arms stand up. It is just right to the heart. And other books, John Randolph Price's Living a Life of Joy, the Book of Joy, which is a dialogue between the Dalai Lama and the Archbishop of Desmond Tutu, where they talk about joy and how to get there and how it expresses in their lives, and the joy of meditation. From the Book of Joy, the Dalai Lama says, to turn our lives around takes only a moment of decision, a commitment, and the process of transformation has begun. Begin right now. We'll let the child come out to play without worrying about images or impressions. We're going to stop being concerned about how others see us. I am who I am. And we're not going to try to change to meet anyone else's expectations. For once, we're going to be true to ourselves. How does that feel? I had an opportunity of this when we left the center last week. I had a second pair of shoes in the car because the ones I was wearing I thought might hurt my feet by the time we got home, finished our shopping. So on the way to the store, I was changing my shoes in the car. We were talking. We get to the store. We go in, do our shopping, come back out. One of my feet's hurting, and I look down. I had only changed one shoe. So I had one black shoe and one off-white shoe. Now, I was at choice. You know, I could have been horrified and I could have been embarrassed and said, well, I'm never going in that store again. Somebody might have seen me. But I just said, you know what? Maybe somebody was having a bad day, looking down like Stephen Hawking tells us not to do, and saw my shoes and got a chuckle. And thought maybe their life wasn't quite so bad after all. So the Dalai Lama also tells us the ability to laugh at ourselves, our own foibles, is essential to the cultivation of joy. See how much joy I gave you? So why choose joy? Price tells us, as our understanding grows, we'll notice that the outer scenes are appearing more beautiful day by day. Our physical body will seem to be operating on a higher energy level. Our finances will be more abundant, and our relationships will move into greater harmony. And we'll hear ourselves laughing more, not taking things so seriously, as we truly enjoy life, perhaps as never before. This is a living and loving universe where every good and perfect possibility exists. Find joy now. Don't wait for later. So, in closing, I want to invite you to think about this. As we approach life, we can do it with joy or struggle. So let's choose joy. So we challenge you, Doug and I challenge you this week to recognize the beauty that surrounds you this week wherever you go. That means being aware and looking outside of yourself and paying attention. To see the gift in a negative experience or interaction. We invite you to be open to laughter, and sometimes laughter for no reason makes other people think. And to recognize the connections you have, the gift they are to you and to the others around you. And finally, dance on the 27th like no one's watching. And go through life singing like no one is listening. Namaste.